Hi, welcome back to the second half of tonight's show where we're going to look forward to our big game against Connacht down in Galway and all the other Pro 12 action. So lads, we take on Connacht down in Galway on Saturday evening. We've already beaten them this season, but they beat us last season both down there and obviously goes out saying in the final over in Edinburgh.
Yeah, and we've a fairly average record down there,
Last few years we have.
We don't tend to. We lost big under Joe Schmidt, for example.
Yeah, we don't travel well to Galway for whatever reason.
Like they really
they
seem
get
to
it
ramp it up for
yeah,
that game.
big time.
I'm not sure if they will for this one because their season
Again, another holding pattern team. Just because, I mean, at this, like I said last week, I'd say that a lot of their backroom team are spending their time watching teams 6 and 7 in the top 14 in the Guinness Premiership.
Well, we do have. I think you mentioned 8 good reasons why we might do well in this game. Sean O'Brien, Johnny Sexton, Luke McGrath, Gary Ringrose, Cian Healy, Rickard Strauss, Michael Bent. I don't know who the exact 8 you're naming, but that's off the top of my head. The fluency we should get from having our starting halfbacks playing, which presumably is what we're going to have.
Do you think they'll go full bore?
Gary Ringrose we really missed that last week. I just thought
it didn't work with Zane at 13.
Zane was fine in defence, but I just
he didn't offer very much going forward.
He wasn't, in fairness to him, he wasn't on the same page because he hasn't been slotting in beside Henshaw there.
I mean, in fairness, he was very good in defence. His defensive reads were excellent, but that was it. And we did miss Gary Ringrose. We have a lot of strength to fill in those other guys, those other 7 guys.
Do you think that they will do you think they'll rest Henshaw?
Yeah.
Do you think
Yeah.
they're
not going to. I mean, even if he wasn't, I would have suggested that even if he hadn't played last week, they wouldn't play him this week because I mean, and I don't mean that they would target him, but he will have a target on him because he's going back.
Yeah, Bundy Aki will make a few holes in it.
He'll be going back to his old team, and that's always a stressful thing. I mean, no spite involved, just the sheer competitiveness of it. So that's he won't be playing anyway. I'd say they'll probably go with Noel Reid or maybe Tom Daly or somebody.
Reid and Ringrose would be an interesting combination against Bundy Aki, won't they?
Yeah. Oh, Noel the Wall Reid, I mean, in fairness to the guy, all we ever asked for Noel Reid was that he'd improve his defence.
By Jesus, he did.
He really has improved. I mean, you've got to admire the guy. Went out and he spent the entire summer tackling and practicing and working on his defence, because his defence this year has been excellent. It really has. Yeah. I mean, we criticise players, so you got to give players credit for when they go out and fix a flaw in their game, and it just shows that even if you're 25 or 26, that you can fix things just through hard work.
Well, defence is basically an attitude, so you can change your attitude, you can change defence.
Yeah.
But yeah, it should be an interesting game. I'm hopeful about it. I think Leinster management might have the feeling that yes, we've done a great job in beating the Ospreys and it's made us a bit more comfortable. But if we beat Connacht, we'd be totally comfortable.
Yeah.
Because that's it. That's the job done.
I'm sure McDawson is encouraging them to win that game as well. Yeah.
Well, here's the thing: if we go into this game against Claremont with domestic business settled, makes things a lot easier.
Yeah. And
the other thing is, I mean, because Connacht are they're not playing all that. They haven't played well this season consistently. They are a good team, though. They were a good team last year and a good team this year.
We do owe them one for last night.
We do, but it also gives us a chance to get a significant run out before the game in Claremont.
Yeah.
Or the game in Leon against Claremont.
Full metal jacket, as Eddie would say.
So the questions are, is there benefit, for example, to playing Joey Carberry again at fullback?
I'd say so.
Give him another game there.
Even a half.
Yeah. Dave Carney made a comeback. Give him a run on the wing. Maybe Issa on the other wing. Because Fergus had a couple of runs now. So his cobwebs have been shaken off. You've got Johnny and Luke, another game together. I think we missed Luke McGrath's spikiness against Reece Webb last week. The front row I have no worries about that. Backup tight head is a bit of a worry
for me. Bent.
No, I'm talking about if we decide to rest Furlong.
Oh, we will, Russ.
Yeah, so backup tight head for that match.
For that match will be Ross.
Ross.
Ross. I'm sorry, I forgot all about Mike Ross.
How could you do that?
I have no worries about tight head at all whatsoever.
Yeah, me neither.
I'm sorry, I completely forgot.
I
about
thought you
that.
meant for Claremont.
Yeah.
You
No, I don't have any worries about that
definitely
either. So yeah, no.
I just wonder if they're going to like bring back some combinations. You know, like I think they're probably fairly certain that if you look at say the ones that have played that are going to start for us that played for Ireland.
Mhm.
So you have 10, 12, 13. They've all
Yeah.
played together for Ireland while they were away,
Mhm.
clearly in Six Nations. So there's no need to bring them back in if they
No,
wanted.
no,
If they
no.
wanted to rest Henshaw, even if they wanted to keep Sexton
Yeah,
under
yeah.
wraps, there's no need. Like, they've already played together, but you do need sort of. I would like to see them playing maybe the back row that's going to start or the
Mhm.
back three that's going to start, because those guys are. There's a few fellas in there that.
Well, we
that
might-
We
Toner,
don't have so many
like, for
options
instance,
in the back row.
no, but like even say second row, you've got Toner and Triggs.
Mhm.
And I think they might rest Toner because he played
Yeah, I
last
think so
weekend.
as well.
But you know, you might say, well, they haven't played together since
Wasps.
the Wasps game, and then before that is back in January. Likewise, you've got say what combinations are you going to go in the back row or in the back three? Are you going to, as you said, are you going to play like Dave Carney? He's come back into contention now. So is he going to step in for Adam Byrne as Adam Byrne's injury?
Well, the question is in both back three and back row is over injuries. What state is Jack Conan in with his neck injury?
I think he's definitely not going to play this week.
I would suggest that they're not going to take any chances
risk.
with him.
Yeah.
No.
We could see Levy play at
Or
eight.
O'Brien played 18.
Or O'Brien.
yeah.
I'd say they keep O'Brien away
They
from.
tend to throw him in one game a season at number 8. I don't know whether it's just to keep him sharp or whatever. I think last time
And
he
maybe
played in
Ruddock, I don't
2014.
Well,
Ruddock again. Yeah.
Ruddock played the game. I'd say
Not such a natural though at 8. He has. I mean, I don't think we'd be going backwards, but he does have problems controlling the ball with his feet sometimes.
See, I think that they'll be trying to get fellas that are going to start against Claremont in the positions. So even if they know, well, look, Conan's going to start there, but we're going to pick, just say O'Brien and Levy,
Mhm.
just say. So that they're going to say, well, we want those two lads
On the
slotting in
flanks.
Yeah.
on both
Well,
flanks, and then we're just going to
Well, no, I'd say
we're going
Van der Fleer at number 8.
possibly, yeah.
no. I think Ruddock's going to play.
Think
8.
so?
Yeah, definitely. Because that's the best holding pattern,
Possibly,
if you like,
possibly.
for to keep things fresh for Conan to step in.
Well, they do have the options anyway. I'd go with Nagel with Triggs, to be honest with you.
I'd say that what you call him will start. Dan Levy will start last week. Van der Fleer started,
Mhm.
so this week Levy will start, and with Ruddock at 8 and O'Brien, and they'll
Mhm.
have Van der Fleer on the bench.
Such a huge depth there, isn't there?
Yeah,
when
well,
you're-
like we've three got we've got Jordy Murphy, Jamie Heaslip, and Dominic Ryan out.
Mhm.
We've still got 6 guys that each one of them is a mother.
Mm.
You know, so
The options are there anyway. I mean,
Blessed.
whatever way they decide to use them, the options are there. I mean, to a certain extent, when you're playing, the only time that those guys really take up a clearly defined position is at scrum time. So It's
that's
a-
true as well.
it's not necessary because the way they play out. I mean, we've been using Sean's been playing at 7, but he's been nominally been selected at 7, but he's actually been playing more of 6 really against Wasps, for example. So it doesn't really matter except at scrum time. So it's really, and the thing about that is, I mean, I often go on about it, and people say, well, it's not really that big a thing. But if you've got a scrum half like Kieran Marmion against you, the number 8's ability to control the ball with his feet is actually very, very important. You know, even if you're going forward, it's very important. But somebody like Marmion who's sniping around there can make shit of your disengage before you know it. Remember Owen Redden against Nick Williams. Nick Williams was a fairly lazy disengager, and like by the time he'd get his arms off the back of the scrum, Redden would be in it and taking the ball out from under his feet. You know,
yeah.
so it's very if you're playing against a clever scrum half, it's really important to have an equally clever number 8. Now, Ruddock
Kieran
is
Marmion has demonstrated how clever a
Yeah.
scrum half he is.
Now, Ruddock is a
against
very, very
England.
good player. I'm just not so sure he's as natural at number 8 relative terms as Dan Levy or Sean O'Brien.
We'll see.
Yeah, well, hopefully it'll be, the weather hopefully will be nice down in Galway. It's about as nice as it can be down there. It can be,
Tornado.
it can be fairly blustery, all right. I mean, last year we just did not play the conditions.
No.
We just couldn't get out of that corner. They knew how to play it. They just kept pumping the ball in, and we, for some reason, started kicking the ball as high as we could, trying to clear it, and it was blown back in
That's
our
right,
faces.
It was, and funnily enough, Connacht have been given a certain amount of game time to former Leinster Academy prospect Steve Crosby, who's a really, really good player.
Yeah.
He got a start last week in place of with Jack Carty on the bench, which I thought was a significant selection. He's a very, very good player. I mean, there was a time when, Joey Carberry and Ross Byrne were simply there for when Steve wasn't available. That was the plan, you know. He was very highly rated. He's a very, very good player.
Connacht just never really got out of the blocks this season,
No,
did they? Like
they started off poorly.
They had the misfortune of messing up. Now it wasn't their fault, I believe, but messing up their pre-season.
No, that was entirely
games.
not their fault. It has to be said.
And
That's where it all went wrong.
yeah, it just seemed to go wrong from there, and they lost their opening. I don't know, maybe say 4 out of their opening 5 games, something like that.
They were undercooked coming into the season. Then by the time they finally managed to get themselves going, they got a run together. Then the whole stuff about Pat Lam broke, which didn't help. And then they found themselves now where
Bundyaki
they
was
are.
injured.
Yeah, Bundyaki got injured, and now they find themselves in no man's land.
And even before that, like they had an opportunity and blew. I really think that they blew, first of all, the opportunity that they had to take Wasps in Coventry, and they blew that with 10 minutes, 15 minutes to go. And likewise, they had another chance. They were given a second chance against Toulouse, down in Toulouse, against a pretty poor Toulouse team, and they blew that as well. Now maybe they, if they had but they weren't able to replace Henshaw when he left, and probably more importantly, the guy who went to Grenoble, the second row.
Yeah, Matt Muldowney.
Muldowney.
They lost 3 players that were very key to their game plan. They lost Muldowney, they lost Henshaw, and the third guy they lost, who was very, very important for them, was AJ McGinty. Not often mentioned.
Yeah,
but he was a very big loss for them.
And their South African out half
Never been on the pitch.
Well, he never made the pitch. Yeah.
Is he still not been on the pitch? I know he had to go home for his dad's funeral a couple of weeks ago.
I guess he's back from that now.
Yeah, he's probably down in Munster now.
Okay. Well, speaking of Munster, they take on mighty Ulster. In
5 points for Munster then.
In another Irish derby.
Yeah, Ulster do not do well against Munster, really, except that one time where everyone laughed.
In
that's
the
one
European
time.
Cup quarter-final.
Yeah.
Stephen Ferris and the boys went down.
Yeah.
They've gone down to Thomond Park and done them a few times recently.
Yeah, but I don't see Ulster. I
Can't see this season.
Can't see it this season.
No.
But Munster are running out of players, starting to get a lot of injuries, and they're going to have to rest anybody that's slightly questionable.
CJ looks like he might be a doubt for for semi.
For the semi, so there won't be risking anybody who's questionable on injury.
Questions also about Murray.
Questions about Murray, Stander, Blayendal, and not Dominic Ryan.
Dominic Ryan both had to do HIAs. So see how that goes.
That's a big worrying third of a team, your best team out. So Ulster in disarray as they are, you wouldn't know what they'd be up against.
Ulster have a dreadful pack.
Yeah.
A simply dreadful pack.
If Munster get into it, they could just eat them alive.
Or murder them. They could have them with sauce.
And they're in a similar situation to us. They're playing for their home semi-final. Yeah. They know that if they get a home semi, as you mentioned last week, Dave, they make a lot of money on it. Clearly, but
and they really do.
And they need it.
Yeah, but the thing is, you look at that Ulster pack. We talked over the last couple of years. We've all talked about how Paddy Jackson has come along and how Luke Marshall and Stuart Holding, and Stuart McCloskey and Craig Gilroy and blah 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 blah.
They weren't that great last week.
But the thing we never talk about is young Ulster forwards.
No.
For one very good reason. There aren't any.
Well, there's one. Henderson.
Henderson, yeah, okay, yeah. But even does he still count as young?
No, probably not. But still,
he looks it though. He is very bright.
They haven't developed like Stephen Ferris, Chris Henry. There was a chap called Pollock who was he was like their own O'Malley. He was really top class promise, but he was a 7. He got injured very young and had to retire. But outside of that, silence. Vacuum.
Maybe I know we've all heard the stories that John O'Gibbs brings, Bite and Pollock into a team's changing room, and maybe he'll bring a bit of that.
The question is, are the players there? The first thing, to a certain extent, schools rugby in Ulster is pretty much the same pattern as school rugby in Leinster, and taken with the same amount of seriousness.
There's a lot less teams that are good in it, though.
And
only about
3. Load of them bail off to Scotland.
Well, that's what I'm going to say. They have the production line, right? But when it comes to a certain point, that line doesn't feed into, was it Newforge where their academy is based? It doesn't head to Newforge, it heads to Larne
Edinburgh
to get the ferry to Scotland. So the first thing John O'Gibbs has to do, I would suggest, is see where that talent is going.
They tend not. I'm not totally convinced that it's because they've had guys like Lorcan Dow, Frankie Taggart. I don't know whether they're not getting their chance or whether they're not being coached right or what it is, but there's guys that have shown promise in there in the forwards that have never seen the light of day. For in an Ulster jersey, the senior Ulster jersey,
and who've played quite well for the under-20s.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So, what's happening to them? The backs are coming through. Like you've named a lot of them. Stockdale in the last couple of years as well.
And
Little.
It just shows. I mean, it doesn't matter how good your backs are.
Yeah.
They have to have the ball.
Exactly.
And Ulster have virtually no one who can get them the ball or get them enough ball to win.
Mm-hmm.
And like they had these stellar South African signings when they got to the European final 5 years ago, but the guys that they've signed as their replacements have been pretty much
They've been
under
a level
par.
down.
Yeah, rubbish like Charles Piatow and
I don't know.
No,
But they're like I'm talking about forwards,
Yeah.
and I'm talking about like
They haven't found a replacement
they
for
had-
Muller, for example.
Yeah.
Van der Merwe was, he was a
So-so.
level down. And Nick Williams was a level down on what's his name? I mean, he was great for Ulster, but he was still level down on Vandenberg.
Mm.
Did they replace Afoa? Not
Well,
really.
Foa didn't play very well for them, and
Oh, but still, he was
He's still-
an all-black winning
And he
European
was still
World
by
Cup.
far their best tight head prop.
has he done much for Gloucester either?
No, but
No.
he's probably 3 or 4 years older now. And they also lost Court.
Yeah.
So they had a pretty strong front row. They had all international standard front row, and they
Yeah.
kind of have Herbst.
Yeah.
Like
Vian Herbst and
Ian
Rodney
Herbst
Ayew.
is qualifying. For, I think IU is
he's a spent
on
force.
the outdoor.
Yeah.
I don't think he's there next year.
Well, has he been dropped?
He's gone from Rodney Kamiru to Rodney Goayu.
Yeah, I'm not sure that he's been signed for next season.
Well,
Top of
he
my
only
head,
moved
could-
last year.
I could be
right?
wrong.
He only
Could be
moved.
wrong.
Connor, you would hardly move for a 1-year deal.
I would doubt it.
I don't know.
Um,
I don't know.
But the thing is, I mean,
Herbst is Irish qualified though this season.
Yeah.
But he's a long way away from getting
No,
on
but
the
I mean,
Irish team
it's
now.
I'm not
Like
mean
that-
in terms
but-
of the Irish team,
but like if you
in terms of just keeping them in the system.
if
Yeah.
you're putting money into a project player, admittedly the rule's going to change now, but if you are over 3 years and you're putting money into somebody, surely the intention is that this guy
in 3
has
years'
to
time,
be
he'd be good enough to get into a
that
squad.
he has to be to the same level as Keane Healy or Tyke Furlong or or McGrath. That is the international standard level. He's miles away from that.
A lot of signings are made though that are so-called project players that they're not necessarily ever going to play for Ireland, but they're just there
Okay,
because they are available to
I
play
know.
for Ireland.
I know, but like
It's easier to get it past the
And
IRQ.
there's a difference
I-
between a
I'm-
project where a guy is targeted, the like of
CJ Standard,
Well, we'll
classic.
call CJ Standard. He's a guy who's targeted that he's definitely going to play for Ireland, and that's the IRFU going.
Okay.
You go to Munster.
okay,
and
well
then Munster going out and signing somebody who's, a
But-
bit of a plotter.
no,
who's gonna-
but this is
other
Ulster.
side.
We're talking about Ulster, and this is Ulster's administrators. Instead of going for the cheap option and saying, "Oh, we can get this guy, and sure he can be Irish qualified," the reality is, you have to source the fellas and you've got to have a talent spotter that you can see somebody and say, "This guy has got serious class." Like for instance, when Connacht signed Bundy Aki, I remember watching Against the Head, and they had Birch was on it, and he was saying, like, he is by far the best centre that's available in New Zealand right now. And he says, to be quite honest with you, I don't know how Connacht got him.
Yeah.
Presumably Lamb had a lot
That's
to do
Lamb.
with that.
That
So they
Lamb
got
and,
him, yeah.
and the IRFU's munificent checkbook.
But,
Yeah.
like he said, this guy was on the radar for the big French clubs. And how Connacht got him,
And Munster and Leinster.
Everyone
Maybe
was
not
after
Leinster.
Bundy Aki. I mean, it was.
and that's really the standard and the quality that you should be looking after. If you're going to bring a fella in to take up a contract in place of an Irish fella, he has to be he should be absolutely sensational, and not, as you call him, a plodder, which is
You see,
what
I
some
don't.
of those Ulster
I
lads
I
are.
think the whole project player thing, has become a smokescreen and a bit of it's become added an air of confusion to the whole thing. Whether we sign a guy, like you say, whether he's a project or whether he's a marquee signing, he should be at least as good, if not better, than what's already there.
Like for instance,
That's the idea.
Like for instance, can I just now when we signed Jemison Gibson Park, right? I thought, oh God, look, this guy's CV looks great. He
Not
was
a signing I was overly fond of.
yeah. Okay, well, I just thought this guy's CV looks pretty impressive. You know, he was on the bench for the team that won the Super Rugby. He was behind the current All Black incumbent. You know, like that's not too shabby that you're subbing for him. And like I have to say, when you know at the start of the season, I was going, yeah, he's pretty tasty, he's pretty good. As the season is progressing, I'm kind of going, God, Luke, you're the man.
Well, there's a couple of elements. There's a couple of elements there. I wasn't in favour of signing a project player at scrum half anyway, because I thought we needed an older player at scrum half to guide the two guys we already had. Now he came in and he's done as well as can be expected. You know, it's a new season. He's moved over to Northern Hemisphere.
I'd give him another season.
Give him another season, and in fairness, he's pushed Luke on.
Yeah.
You know.
Okay.
But the project player, but he was a guy who was, you know, a regular in the 23 of a Super Rugby team, right? James Lowe is a guy who's a regular in the 23 and indeed a starter Super Rugby team. CJ Stander was, you know, a very highly regarded player. Bundy Aki was a very highly regarded player, right? Those are the guys you should be looking for, not for Ian Herbst, you know, not for.
Yeah, well, they've signed another one now. They've signed a guy from the Kings.
Yeah.
The loosehead prop, Skulk van der Merwe.
Are they all called Van der Merwe?
Yeah,
All the props are.
they're all called Skulk as well.
Mm-hmm.
So, you know, they're at it again. And the point about it is this, right? When you make rules, in other words, the non-Irish qualified rules that the IRFU have made, people are going to play those rules. And you're going to get unintended.
Listen to them really now.
Well, look, you're going to get unintended consequences because the IRFU are going, well, you have to sign an Irish qualified player, or at best or at worst, somebody who can become Irish qualified. Now, the only place you can get really good players who can become Irish qualified is pretty much New Zealand, with some exceptions in South Africa. But you know, players who you're talking about who are good, the Bundy Akis, all these guys who are good enough that they could become an Irish player. You get the odd guy like CJ Stander in South Africa, but they're becoming less and less, and you know the French money and the English money is buying up a lot of them. So, but you get guys like Robbie Dyack, for example, coming in, who is a good player. He's a very good player, but he's not a great. He's not in the. He has played for Ireland, but you know he's maybe one or two caps, and he probably won't get too many more. Nothing against that type of player, but he's. You know, that's the kind of player you're going to get if you are prioritising this on the rules of Irish qualification.
Yeah. But
and you'll also get fellas like, remember we had a guy McCarthy came over from Jersey, never played a day.
Yeah.
But we signed him because he was Irish qualified.
I think
he was never going to play
that was
for
in
Ireland.
the bad old days, though, wasn't it?
That was only 2 years ago.
Exactly, yeah, that was in the bad old days when that was
Yeah.
in the bad old days when the IRFU were kind of coming down heavy on, well, you can't really have the big marquee
Yeah, I think
name.
you had to show winning. I mean, we signed a couple of guys like that. Some of them worked out, some of them didn't. I mean, we signed Simon Shaw, for example, in the AIL. Now, he actually worked out for us.
Well, that was probably out of necessity rather than...
Yeah, but he put in 20 minutes for us, or 10 minutes for us in that game that we were talking about last week in Wembley. So he earned his corn, whereas your man McCarthy never played for us. So there's swings and roundabouts on those. But like you say,
he got a European Cup medal, didn't he, against Ulster?
Yeah, it's like they say he did. Yeah, it's like they say when you set something in stone, like a speed limit, it's
You will
not it's a
find ways
limit,
to
not
cheat
a
it.
target.
Well, that's true as well. Yeah.
You know, so you get kind of thing. And then I've been making jokes all week about Munster and their 10 players, but if you put a number there and people go beyond it, then people are going to say, well, you said you can only have some, and people complain. So the best way to do it is just say, no, you can have A, B, C, and D, and they have to be really, really top level.
Unfortunately, IRFU can't really do that and they have to it's a bit of an Irish solution to an Irish problem thing. They have to kind of do it on a case by case basis because, which is good and bad. I mean, it's good that you know there are no hard and fast rules is a good thing and a bad thing. It's a good thing in that occasionally you're going to get something that you weren't expecting that is good, but it's also occasionally you can be denied something that you were expecting that can that would have been potentially good. So, and it's all behind closed doors, so there's no what's the word? There's no clarity. There's no kind of transparency. Is the word.
And certainly said that's the way they want, because if you don't know what they did the last time, you don't know what they're going to do the next time.
Exactly. Yeah.
And again, I mean, to a certain extent, this ignores the amount of, for want of a better word, journeyman pros from the Southern Hemisphere who weren't Irish qualified, who've come over here and done a really, really good job for Irish teams. I'm thinking of Hank van der Merwe or Paul Warwick, or guys of that ilk who come over. Paul Steinmetz up in Ulster, guys who've come in and just been really good pros. David Hallwell for us, been really good pros, and who've kind of just set an example, even if they're only here a short while. Just set an example during that period of time. So there has to be room for that kind of player as well, because that player can benefit a club too.
That's true, and they're always available throughout the year for selection as well. I
mean, I'm not talking. I mean, to a certain extent, the guy who falls into that, although he isn't, he's one of the best players who played in Europe in the last decade, is Issa Nasiwa.
Yeah,
he's
I was
another guy.
thinking of him when you were saying it.
Issa Nasiwa was one of those. John Langford, every Ruan Pienaar, they're guys who are unavailable superstar players who leave a legacy.
Yeah. Anyway, boys, as ever, thanks a million, and thanks so much for watching. Cheers.